On Tuesday, 17, President Joe Biden visited the city of Buffalo, New York to offer condolences to the families affected by the racist terrorist attack that took place 3 days prior, killing 10 people. In his emotional speech, he referred to white supremacist theories as poison and promised that evil would not prevail. He also remembered each of the victims of the attack, which is being classified as a terrorist act motivated by racism. The attack occurred on Saturday, 14, when an 18-year-old individual drove over 3 hours to carry out a mass shooting in a supermarket in Buffalo, the second most populous city in New York. Using a gun engraved with racist messages, Peyton S. Gendron killed 10 people and injured 3 others before surrendering to the police. Biden emphasized the presence of white supremacy in politics and called for action to combat these ideologies. He also condemned those who use lies for personal gain. If you want to know more news that happens in the world, subscribe to the channel and leave your opinion on the subject. Timothy James, Tim McVeigh was an American domestic terrorist who executed the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995, which resulted in the deaths of 168 people and injuries of over 600. McVeigh, a Gulf War veteran, had revenge on the federal government for their handling of the Waco siege, which had resulted in 76 deaths exactly 2 years prior. He was convicted of 11 federal offenses and sentenced to death, and was executed by lethal injection on June 11, 2001. Terry Nichols was an accomplice of McVeigh in the Oklahoma City bombing. He was arrested a few days after the bombing, when police found ammonium nitrate, a key ingredient in the bomb, in his storage locker. He was also found to have purchased large quantities of the same ammonium nitrate that McVeigh used in the bomb. Although Nichols' role in the bombing was not as significant as McVeigh's, he was still considered a key conspirator and was involved in the planning and execution of the attack. In 1997, Nichols was convicted of conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction and 8 counts of involuntary manslaughter for his role in the bombing. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In 2004, he was convicted in an Oklahoma state court of 161 counts of first-degree murder, and was sentenced to 161 consecutive life terms, without the possibility of parole. Racism and death have been unfortunately intertwined throughout history, such as the lynching era, Tulsa Race Massacre, the murder of Emmett Till, the murder of George Floyd and the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, all of which were motivated by racism and a desire to maintain white supremacy. These cases serve as a reminder of the deep-seated racial divisions that continue to exist in our society and the devastating impact that racism can have on individuals and communities. It is also important to note that these cases of racism and death are not isolated incidents, but rather the result of systemic issues within society. From the legacy of slavery and the ongoing effects of discrimination and inequality, to the over-policing and mass incarceration of marginalized communities, racism and violence are deeply ingrained in the structures and institutions of our society. It is crucial that we continue to acknowledge and address these issues in order to bring about true change and justice for all people. This includes educating ourselves about the history of racism and its ongoing impact, actively working to dismantle systems of oppression, and supporting and uplifting marginalized communities. It is also important to remember that racism and death are not just limited to the United States, but are also global issues that affect people of all races and ethnicities. Therefore, it is crucial that we work together to address these issues on a global scale and support one another in the fight for equality and justice for all. It is important to continue the conversation about these issues and strive for a more just and equitable society. I encourage everyone to educate themselves on these topics, and to speak out against racism and discrimination whenever and wherever it occurs. I also invite you to leave your comments and thoughts on this topic, as it is important to have different perspectives and ideas. By continuing to address these issues, we can work towards creating a better future for all.